Stop. My mother couldn't even button her own coat, so how could she forge those documents?
Young lady, what did you just say?
Wait. Please, everyone, just stop. Young lady, this is a federal hearing. You will sit down immediately, or I will have you removed. I won't sit down. Not until someone in this room tells the truth. My mother didn't forge anything. She can't even use her right hand anymore. How could she have falsified those documents? Your Honor, please forgive the interruption. The girl is frightened. She doesn't understand. I understand perfectly. I understand that nobody bothered to ask the simplest question. I understand that my mother is being convicted of something that is physically impossible for her to have done. And I understand that someone in this room already knows that. Your Honor, this child is making wild accusations in open court. I request immediate removal. Young lady, you have exactly 90 seconds to give me one reason not to hold you in contempt. My mother lost full mobility in her right hand 14 months ago. Nerve damage. Documented. The forgeries you are convicting her of require precise controlled penmanship, because the signatures alternate. Her neurologist is Dr. Raymond Cho at Eastbrook Medical. He has video records of her motor assessments. She could not hold a pen steadily enough to sign her own birthday card, let alone replicate 5 different executive signatures. Prosecutor Marsh. Were the defendant's medical records included in discovery? Your Honor, the physical evidence of the documents themselves. That is not what I asked you. Your Honor, I want to formally enter this question into the record. If the prosecution was provided medical documentation establishing physical impossibility, and chose not to disclose it, we are no longer talking about an oversight. This is absurd. A child walks in off the street with an unverified claim. Room 7. Eastbrook Neurology Clinic. October the 3rd. My mother cried because she couldn't button her own coat. The nurse, her name is Rosario Vega, she gave my mother her own scarf because it was cold outside and my mother couldn't manage the zipper. Ask her. Ask Rosario Vega what she saw that day. Your Honor, this is theater. Pure manipulation designed to. Sit down. This hearing is recessed. I want Dr. Raymond Cho's complete file on my desk within the hour. I want Rosario Vega located and prepared to testify. And I want every document in the prosecution's discovery file audited against what was submitted to this court. Someone bring this child water and a chair. Nobody embarrasses a frightened daughter in my courtroom. I need you to tell me exactly how a 13-year-old girl just stopped a federal conviction. The medical file. Someone failed to bury it properly. I was told it was handled. It wasn't. And now Wells is pulling the entire discovery record. Then we give them the contingency. Hartwell processes everything forward. Margaret had access, had motive, had opportunity. The physical limitation argument is a delay, not a defense. We bury them in procedural counterfilings until Wells loses patience. And the girl? The girl is 13 and frightened. She will frighten more easily at home. Mr. Cole, sit down. I need to speak plainly. I reviewed the audit summary 20 minutes ago. 3 prosecution exhibits were submitted with altered timestamps. The original files exist in the company server backup, and they contradict the submitted versions by 11 days. 11 days before my client was even employed in that department. Exactly. Someone built this case around a woman who couldn't have done it, and made sure the evidence that proved that never reached me. Your Honor, why are you telling me this privately? Why not in open court? Because in open court their legal team files 17 procedural objections and buries us for 6 months while they move assets and destroy records. I need you to understand what we are actually dealing with before we walk back in that room. Your client isn't the first. I found 11 cases in the last 7 years with nearly identical structures. Someone discovers something in their work. They raise a question internally. Within weeks they are facing criminal charges. The evidence appears complete, compelling, and clean. Because it was built by people who do this for a living. Oh, the name that appears at every junction, directly or through intermediaries, is Aldrin Consolidated. Your Honor, you have been on this bench for 19 years. You must have encountered their cases before. Once. 8 years ago. I was investigating a pattern in regulatory filings. Different company, same structure. I was close enough that someone felt the need to warn me off. Warn you how? My son was 17. He had a full athletic scholarship to Pemberton University. 3 days after I refused to drop the investigation, his scholarship was quietly revoked. No explanation. No appeal process. The university cited a procedural review. He never went to college. He works in a warehouse. He is 31 now and he has never asked me about it directly, because he thinks he did something wrong. He still thinks that. I stopped asking questions. I told myself it was pragmatism, that I was protecting my family. A 13-year-old girl stood in my courtroom today and said she was scared the truth wasn't enough. And I told her not to be. So now I have to mean it. You did a brave thing today. Brave and very, very stupid. Your mother is going to prison either way. The only question is whether you go with her. Mr. Cole. I recorded that call. And I need to tell you something else. Something I didn't say in court, because I wasn't sure it mattered. But I think it does. The day before my mother was arrested, she came home, and she was shaking. I asked her what happened, and she said she found something at work. Numbers that didn't belong. She said she told her supervisor and he smiled at her and said not to worry. Did she say what the numbers were? No. But she wrote it down. She always writes things down when she is worried. I found the notebook in her coat pocket when I was doing laundry the week she was arrested. I didn't know what it meant, so I kept it. I still have it. Elena. Don't touch that notebook. Don't move it. I am sending someone to you right now. The account numbers your client wrote down match 3 shell entities registered in the Cayman Islands. All 3 trace back, through 4 layers of corporate structure, to Aldrin Consolidated. What was moving through those accounts? Regulatory fees. Paid to a government oversight body. Except the oversight body's own records show they never received the payments. $47 million paid, and received on paper that physically moved somewhere else. She found the drain. She found one drain. We have identified at least 6 more since last night. And Hartwell? Hartwell reached out to federal authorities 4 days ago. He has been cooperating under full protection since then. Last night he provided something we were not expecting. A communication log between Victor Aldrin and the prosecutor going back 22 months. She was working with him before this case even existed. She was working with him on the case before it was a case. She helped construct it. How many people knew about this and said nothing? We are still counting. 11 cases. 11 families. We go back in today. All of it. In open court. I want Aldrin, Marsh, and Sloan in that room, and I want them sitting down when they realize what we have. It's almost over, Mom. You don't know that. I know you wrote it down. I know you always write things down. You found the notebook. I kept it safe. This court reconvenes. Before we proceed, I am making several rulings that will restructure these proceedings substantially. First, a full forensic audit of all discovery materials submitted by the prosecution has been completed overnight. 3 exhibits were found to contain altered timestamps. The authentic originals exist in the defendant's company server records and establish that the documents in question predate the defendant's employment in the relevant department by 11 days. Second, medical records establishing that the defendant has documented right-hand motor impairment, rendering her physically incapable of producing the penmanship present in the forged documents, were in the prosecution's possession and were deliberately withheld from this court. Your Honor, I must object to the characterization. Sit down. Third, this court has received and authenticated a series of communications between the prosecution and Victor Aldrin, chairman of Aldrin Consolidated, spanning 22 months. These communications establish prior coordination in the construction of this case, before any crime was formally alleged. Order. Victor Aldrin. Stand up. Your Honor, I welcome any opportunity to clarify. This is not a clarification. I am going to ask you one question, and I want the court to observe your answer carefully. Not what you say. How long it takes you to say it. Did you know that this defendant could not physically have created the documents she was convicted of forging? I relied entirely on the investigation teams. 1.7 seconds. That is how long it took you to begin your answer. I have been watching people answer questions in this courtroom for 19 years. Innocent people answer that question in the first breath. You needed 1.7 seconds to decide which version of the truth to offer me. Please bring in the federal witnesses. I am going to ask each of you to state your name and one sentence. Just one. Whatever you most need this room to hear. My name is Thomas Aurelio. I spent 3 years in prison for financial crimes I did not commit because I asked why a client's invoices didn't match the delivery records. 3 years. My daughter learned to ride a bike without me. My name is Priya Desai. I was a compliance auditor. I found the same accounts your court is looking at right now. I reported them. 6 weeks later I was arrested for embezzlement. I lost my license. My husband left. I spent 4 years believing I had somehow misremembered what I saw. I had not misremembered anything. I knew exactly what I saw. My name is Dorothy Chun. I am 73 years old. I was a bookkeeper for 41 years. I never had so much as a parking ticket. They convicted me of tax fraud. I served 8 months before a clerical error in their own filing accidentally revealed the evidence had been staged. They quietly released me. No apology. No explanation. I had to sell my house to pay the legal fees. I have been waiting 6 years for someone to say what happened to me out loud in a room where it counted. Thank you for being louder than the rest of us could manage to be. You want to make me the villain of your story, fine. But you pull that thread and you have no idea what unravels. I have documentation on every official who ever looked the other way. Judges. Regulators. Politicians. If I fall, I don't fall quietly. I fall loudly and I take names with me. I know exactly what you have. The team spent the night imaging your servers. We have it too. And unlike you, I am not afraid of what is in those files. Because unlike you, I am not in them. I want to say something. Please sit down. Please. I have been quiet through all of this. Through the arrest and the trial and the conviction and watching my daughter carry something that was mine to carry. I have been quiet because I was ashamed. Not of what I did. Of what I didn't do. I found those accounts 14 months ago. I looked at the numbers and I knew. I knew immediately. And for 3 days I didn't say anything to anyone because I was afraid. I had a daughter at home. I had a mortgage. I told myself I needed more information. Needed to be sure. Needed to find the right moment. Then I wrote it down in my notebook and I told my supervisor, and I thought I had done something brave. What I had actually done was give them enough warning to build a cage around me before I could run. My daughter was not afraid. She walked into this room with nothing but what she remembered and what she believed, and she refused to accept that it wasn't enough. She is 13 years old, and she is braver than I have ever been in my life. I am not going to be quiet anymore. I will testify to everything I found. Every account number. Every discrepancy. Every conversation. I will give this court everything I have. Not because I am not scared. I am terrified. But I have a daughter who doesn't believe that fear is a reason to stop. So I am going to try to be someone she doesn't have to be ashamed of. Victor Aldrin, Rena Sloan, and Diane Marsh are taken into custody pending formal charges of criminal conspiracy, obstruction of justice, evidence fabrication, witness intimidation, and coordinated wrongful prosecution across 11 documented cases. Your cases will be reviewed. All of them. I will personally oversee each review. And let the record show that the evidence that broke this case was not a sophisticated legal maneuver, or a federal investigation, or a forensic breakthrough. It was a notebook. Kept by a woman who wrote things down when she was worried. Found by a daughter who did laundry. Margaret Souza, all charges are dismissed. Expunged. The record will reflect only the truth, that you are an innocent woman who discovered something real, reported it through proper channels, and was systematically destroyed for doing exactly what an honest person should do. The state owes you an apology. I owe you an apology. 8 years ago, people like you came close to having a judge who would have fought for them. I chose safety instead. I told myself it was wisdom. It wasn't. It was fear. The same fear you just stood up and refused to let win. I am sorry. For all of it. For what happened to you and for the years I spent being the kind of judge who could have been too careful to stop it. You asked me yesterday not to give up on the truth. You said you were scared it wasn't enough. I want to answer you properly now in front of everyone. By the authority of this court, Elena Souza is awarded the Distinguished Citizen Commendation for extraordinary courage in the service of justice. But I want to say something beyond the formal language. You came in here alone. You had a nurse's name and a room number, and a memory of your mother crying over a coat button. That was everything you had. And you stood in front of this entire system and said it wasn't enough to make truth disappear. You were right. It never is. This case will be studied. Not for its legal complexity. The law here is straightforward. It will be studied because of what almost happened. An innocent woman with documented proof of her innocence was 11 minutes from sentencing. 11 minutes. Because the people who built the case against her understood something that we sometimes forget. That systems are only as honest as the people running them. And when enough people in a system decide that convenience matters more than truth, the system doesn't collapse dramatically. It just quietly processes the wrong people. Case by case. Name by name. Life by life. What stopped it was not the system correcting itself. Systems rarely correct themselves. What stopped it was a 13-year-old girl who knew her mother couldn't button her coat, and decided that was more important than every official document in this building. Thomas. Priya. Dorothy. You came here after years of being told your cases were closed. They are not closed. Justice doesn't have an expiration date. You stood up today when you didn't have to. When sitting down would have been understandable and human and forgivable. That mattered. That is going to matter to 11 other people whose cases we are reopening this week. And you. Don't ever learn to sit down quietly. The world has enough people who have learned that. It cannot afford to lose the ones who haven't. Court is adjourned.